there's a lot of models that kind of like support that same kind of like cadence or like applying some of those same kind of like principles and theories. Um, one that I like to use, and again, it works very well in an adult education context because it uses the learner's experience as the basis. And the researcher is Kolb with a K, and
Right.
it's the experiential learning model is how is. And if you look at the research, he breaks out into different types of learners. I put that to the side because learning is much more complex that you can put a single learner within a box and how they learn. It's just too complex. So
I
that I don't.
agree.
But the process that comes out of that, I've found works really well. And if we have time, I could walk through real quickly, and I'll highlight a couple points where I think it becomes super critical, and it even potentially could help a system to help mitigate AI use. And what I mean by that is it starts with this idea of a concrete experience. And what that is before you do any type of instruction, you didn't provide any information. Excuse me. The You provide this experience, and it can vary from a task. It could be maybe watching a video clip, a whole bunch of stuff where you're making an abstract idea concrete. Um, but if it's a task, the students are going to fail, and you can start applying some what we call productive failure, right? You're applying that kind of cognitive effort there, and when you move to the next phase, you're basically reflecting on that experience. And what's really helpful there is the questions you ask and you have the group work through in that phase is you start to uncover what do the students already know about this topic or skill and where their skill level's at. You also uncover misconceptions. One of the things that as an instructor that I don't want to happen, I don't want a misconception to survive the course or training, because if it does, then the student believes that that's correct. So this is a way to uncover those misconceptions. Then you can get into what they've termed as general new information, right? So that's your traditional kind of like your education piece. But as an instructor, when you're using that methodology, you can adapt that based upon what you learned in the previous phase. So now you've almost made like a group individualization of learning. Uh, some of the methods you can apply there, the old method of think, pair, share. I mean, that comes from the K
Yes,
through 12, but it works really
it
well
does. Yeah.
in that phase because you start to learn what they already know, and then you can adapt what you're going to talk about or what the information you're going to cover in that next phase. But one more last phases that I think is super important that you do all the time is you ask the question, you have the articulation of how are you going to use the information that we've just covered in the real world. So you start to make the learner take ownership of that learning. It's a real simple process, and sometimes you can do that process over days, over weeks. You can do that process in 30 minutes, right? So it's very adaptable to your context, and and I find it just works really well. Now, where it doesn't work is when your audience doesn't have enough experience to apply in that concrete experience, right? Now you're kind of so you might have to rely on a more direct instructional methodology, right? Depending on again knowing your audience before you
Right.
go in and start approaching that instructional um, product or event that you're covering.